In this lesson, we'll learn how to use the hue saturation adjustment inside of Photoshop. All right, so go ahead and open up the Lesson 19 Begin file with me. And, we've looked at the brightness contrast adjustment, the levels adjustment, and now the curves adjustment. But there's really one other adjustment that I wanted to show you how to use here inside of this course. It's a very common adjustment, and I use it quite a bit. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the hue and saturation adjustment. Now, in the case of adjustments, just as with before, we can apply them up here through image adjustments and hue saturation right here. But again, this is a destructive change right here that we would make to our image. So whenever possible, always try and use an adjustment layer. You can come in and grab it right here. Or you can come in here to the adjustments panel and find it right here, the first icon on the second row. So when we go ahead and click on that hue saturation adjustment layer, again, several things look the same. These two buttons up here are the same with all the adjustments we've looked at. We're going to make sure that we have the adjustment selected here. Now, when it comes to the settings for this looks a little different. There's no histogram here to be concerned with, but we do have, again, presets right up here. You can come in and experiment with those if you feel you'd like to. Below that, we can actually choose whether we want to adjust sort of the master hue, saturation, and lightness, or we can come in here and adjust the hue, saturation, and lightness for just the reds, the yellows, the greens, and so on and so forth in our image. So let's go ahead and stick with master for right now. So when we come in here to this hue slider, and we begin to adjust this, what I want you to think about this slider as, you can see here it has kind of this really strange slider with gradients from color to color. So think of this in terms of a color wheel. I think everybody should be familiar with what a color wheel looks like. So every pixel in our image has a specific location on the color wheel. Every image pixel in this image, it has a color, and that color lies on the color wheel. Now, when we come in here and grab this gray slider and we begin to adjust this, imagine all of those pixels on the color wheel shifting at one time the same amount of space. So you can see here as we begin to slide this to the left, all of those pixels are rotating in one direction around the color wheel. And you can see here kind of what that looks like. So we can go 180 degrees in this direction, or if we start back at 0 here, we can drag to the right and we can go 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So that gives us a full 360 degrees around the color wheel. So let's go ahead and zero that out again. Now, what basically we're doing is remapping the colors in our image. So as we begin to shift them around the color wheel, let's say we drag them to the left here a little ways. We have here, down at the bottom, we have two more little strips of color here. Now, a way to look at this is the gradient strip here on the right, or the ramp here on the top. Basically, this is where our colors started out as. So if we were to click on this eyeball and look, we have kind of an orange building here in the foreground. If we look over at the oranges right here, kind of on this top ramp, and we kind of match that up on this bottom ramp, you can now see where those colors have been remapped to. So again, that building is orange, and the oranges here kind of map to this pink color right here. So that is what these two color ramps right here represent. Now, if I were to come in here and just zero that out again, we have a lot of control inside this hue saturation adjustment. So we'll put that at 0, but we can also adjust the overall saturation for these colors. So watch as I begin to kind of decrease the amount of saturation here. And you can see here we have a very low amount of saturation in our colors. And again, if you look at these two color ramps down at the bottom, you can see the before and the after, and kind of how the saturation adjustment has affected the after. Now, just like saturation, we can come in here and adjust the overall lightness. So if we wanted to maybe darken this image up, we could do it here. But again, that's affecting the overall darkness. So you can see here how that looks on the before and the after. All right, great. So let's go ahead and zero these out. Now, another really cool option that we can actually utilize here inside of the hue saturation adjustment is the colorize feature. Now the colorize feature is a little different. What we're going to do here, if we go ahead and tap on that, is it's going to basically assign the same color, albeit different values, to all the pixels in our image. So in this case, you can see here that we're working with red. If we wanted to kind of saturate that up and maybe switch it over to kind of a blue color, you can see here kind of in the before and the after color ramps down here. You can see here the after is all the same color. So we can come in here and we can use this to kind of create sort of a monotone image if we really would like to. You can kind of see here we can play with that. That is the colorize feature. So let's go ahead and hit this button right here, and that's going to revert that back to its original settings. All right, fantastic. So now at this point, let's take our hue saturation adjustment and let's get a little bit more specific with it here. So we've been working with the master, which is all the colors in our image, but let's say that we wanted to do something specific. Now this is a very colorful image. Let's say that maybe this orange building right here, we want to just change the color of that orange building. So I'm going to come back over to my properties panel, and let's come over and choose, let's see, we could probably go with reds or yellows. Let's go ahead and just say reds for right now. Now look what happened down here below. If we look here, there's this little area that's been added to our color ramps here. And there's some specific areas. So this lighter gray area in the center, that's going to be the area that's affected most. These darker gray areas is going to be where there is a little bit of fall off starting to occur. But what we can do is we can begin to customize this. We can drag this over. And maybe we want to do the purples or the pinks. We can drag that over like so. Or we can take this eyedropper right here and just come over and sample that orange. And it's going to shift that area right over here. Now, once we have targeted that area, we can start to come up here and grab our hue slider. And we can start to change just the color that we have selected. So you can see how this building is starting to change. Now we are starting to affect this building here as well as this building here. So let's do this. We're going to come over here and zero that out. And let's come over here and click on this little eyedropper that has the minus sign next to it. So we can come over here like so and say we don't want to affect this yellow. So let's go ahead and tap on it. Notice how our targeted area changes. I want to also tap on this building right here because we don't want to affect it. And you can see here how that gray area has shrunk down drastically. So now at this point, maybe we will just slide this to the right and start to change our color to blue. You can kind of see how that is now affecting it. So we can start to become very, very specific in the colors that we target with our hue saturation adjustment layer. Now I'm going to again go ahead and revert this. So let's click on this little button right here. So we'll revert that back. Now, just as with the curves adjustment, there is an on image adjustment tool here inside the hue saturation adjustment. So what we can do with this tool is if we come over here and use that, we can tap over here on this orange building. We can begin to target that for changes. So you can see here that if I begin to drag left and right, we're adjusting the saturation of that color we selected. Let's come over here and undo that. I'll just actually hit Control Z. Actually, let's just revert back. There we go. And not only can we adjust the saturation of that color, if we were to come over here with our on image adjustment selected and hold down the Control key and tap that building, now we're adjusting the hue of just that area that we tapped on here. So again, this is kind of a quick way to target specific areas in your image for an adjustment. Maybe we want to come over here and let's kind of zoom in here. Maybe we want to change this pink color right here. So I'll go and hold Control and we'll tap that. And we can begin to adjust just that kind of that hot pink building and maybe change the color of it to maybe a navy blue, sort of like that. Now that was one of the only places in this image that we had that color, so that actually really looks pretty good. There was very few other areas in the image that were affected by that hue saturation change. You can see here if we go ahead and tap on that, there's a little bit of a change right here, and we have a little bit of a reflection change here inside this window, but making that change using the hue saturation adjustment was very, very easy. All right, great. So with that, in this lesson, we've learned how to apply a hue saturation adjustment to our image. And with that, since we're starting to talk a little bit about color, let's go ahead and move on at this point to the next lesson, where we'll spend a little bit of time learning about document color modes and color settings.